the claim is that there might be small pockets of flour that were not completely hydrated in during the kneading process, when the water and the flour were mixed to make the matzah dough. There may be pockets of flour that were not thoroughly hydrated, and they end up being placed rolled out as the matzah and placed in the oven, and perhaps in the oven it didn't get thoroughly baked or roasted, because it's flour. It's not, you bake dough, you don't roast dough, you bake dough. We call it baking, but if it's flour, we call it roasting. And therefore, and maybe there's a pocket of such flour which was not thoroughly roasted, and therefore, if you now open up, take this matzah, break it open, put it in your soup or something, perhaps it'll become hametz. That's what is claimed to be the hashash. This hashash is is unreasonable, and the reason for this idea gaining traction in the Jewish world is as follows. First of all, when you make real matzah, that is to say soft matzah, you use the requisite amount of water, as you do with any dough, so that the flour will be thoroughly incorporated into the dough. You need a certain amount of water for that. Number one, so you don't skimp on the water, and then you have to knead it properly. The kneading is important, even though we're talking about matzah and not something that we wish to allow to become hametz. You nevertheless have to knead. If, however, you do things in a panicked and very rushed fashion, and therefore you almost do not knead at all, because you're trying to rush things through as quickly as possible, and you also use too little water, which, as I understand it, became not uncommon. And you can read about this in the beginning of Ilchot Hametz U'Masah. I think it's called the Kuntres Aharon of the Baal Tanya in his Shulchan Aruch. There's a special Kuntres Aharon to do with Ilchot Pesach, and he describes how Masah is being made by many people, and on why these considerations are not totally divorced from reality if you make it in such a way, which is the wrong way to do things. So if you want dry matzah, first of all, then use less water perhaps. And if you're in a big rush or you're panicked about the possibility of hametz, you don't mix things properly. And then it's possible to end up maybe occasionally with a small pocket of flour, which is not properly kneaded and therefore went through the process and comes out of the oven as still a small amount of flour somewhere in the matzah. Not totally impossible, but first of all, even if this did happen, how exactly does it not, in a normal oven, which is hundreds of degrees hot, centigrade, how is it possible that this flour would not be considered roasted? It's very, very far-fetched. Second of all, with machine matzah today, for example, this cannot happen. The process is such that it comes out as a dry matzah, because that's the product they wish to produce. But there is sufficient water to mix to incorporate all the flour. The flour is hydrated, and it's not. There's no lack of mixing, and it's baked very quickly. There's simply no possibility of anything of this sort happening. If it's done by hand and it's done improperly, hypothetically such a thing could happen. But again, it is very, very far-fetched, and it was not the minhag of Am Yisrael throughout history to adopt this. Jews did not adopt this practice. So panic and attempting to produce a less than ideal product, that is to say, dry matzah, which I believe was only considered the desired outcome, because Masa was generally, in Europe at least, was produced weeks before Pesach, generally, and it was distributed and transported to different, outlying places. And the only way for this to work is for it to be a dry cracker like masa. Otherwise, it will simply become moldy and inedible, as any bread product would, because there is moisture. If it is entirely dry, then it cannot become moldy. And this is true. You can take a box of masa that you bought last year and you didn't finish, and you can open it up right now, and you will see that it's still fresh and entirely edible, and you might think it was baked the day before. It's almost an indestructible and very longevous form of cracker, because there is no moisture there, which is also why it's very heavy, which is why it's many people find it difficult to deal with large quantities of matzah on Pesach in terms of their digestion. This is not real matzah, and it's certainly not ideal matzah, and it leads to a problem. So avera goreret avera, one thing leads to another. So this is how these things can be avoided if one does things properly. And this is not a minhag that I would recommend at all. I think it's entirely without basis.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael, or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.